Welcome to Bloom State Radio. This is episode number 9. And episode number 9 is the final episode of series 1. So I just want to say thank you to you regular listeners who've tuned in to every episode. And also to the listeners who've jumped in and moved with whatever episode they're feeling called to click into. So massive gratitude to y'all. I really wanted to hit record and share whatever was real, unfiltered, and alive for me each and every month on whatever topic was right for me to speak out on. So I have honoured the commitment that I made to myself and to my creation of this beautiful, beautiful happening of Bloom State Radio. So yeah, the commitment has been honoured, and I'm super stoked to be recording this final episode of Series 1. And Series 1 is going to be closed off with an episode which is an unfiltered free flow of the year that has been for me. 2025. What a year. What a vibrant year. What a year filled with lots of change and twists and turns and the inevitable ups and downs. And I just want to say to myself that you go, girl, because it's been an interesting one with lots of changes in the sense of my work, romance, just general relationships, and the way that I've moved with my training and my diet. It's been very fruitful, very beautiful, very alive, and just touching on the job aspect where I've moved from being in contract work into self-employment. But it's interesting that we are 1 year in from when I first commenced my self-employment work, and I'm actually shifting into contract work again, which I'm actually quite excited about. I'm excited to get some paid holidays. I'm excited for a potential bonus. And I'm excited to get some cash behind me, ready to drive my future projects of 2026, which requires cash. So yeah, it's been interesting, really up-leveling my skills as a business assistant and utilizing my creativity, my organization, my focus, my drive, my ambitious nature, and channeling that and steering that into businesses that need my help. Now, that has come with many challenges in itself. And, I feel like we are exposed to so much on the internet about leave your 9 to 5 and la 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 la, which, yeah, okay, fair enough. I feel like any sort of break away from the matrix system that we have been quote unquote governed into is always going to be liberating. And I definitely felt liberated moving into that self-employed state, not only because I could be more flexible with the hours that I put in, but also it feels like it dissolved the sort of hierarchical positioning. Now, even if I go into workspaces and I'm on contract work, in my mind, the hierarchy is dissolved. Like, we work alongside each other. You are not the boss of me, and vice versa. We're here to get a job done. We're here to be coherent. We're here to be reciprocal in what it is that we bring into the dynamic. Otherwise, what are we doing here? All right. So I set my standards and my values very clear before I stepped into this dynamic of business assistants, because as we know, people can fuck about. So we've got to have our values and our standards aligned, ready for the fuck about, because it's inevitably going to happen in some of these circumstances that I foreseen, and I was ready for it. So working alongside any man in an environment, I've always got to be alert, should I say. And it's always inevitable that there's going to be some sort of fuck up and a revealing of the nature of the people that I work alongside. Now, I'm not painting every single man who has their own business with the same brush, because that's not fair. But what I have noticed is that no matter what working environment that we align with, there's always going to be ebbs and flows. Nothing is perfect. Literally nothing is perfect. And if anyone says they're in the perfect job and they're never stressed, I want to hear from you, honey. What are you up to? What's the game? Because even though I was in these beautiful positions of being able to step into my expressive, creative, organized state, there were shadows to the role itself. So a year in self-employment has been really fun, a little bit stressful, but what I'm actually really looking forward to now in moving into this contract workspace is that level of consistency. So I'm just going to feel into how that now feels in my system after having a year away from it, moving in a different dynamic. Like, what is that going to feel like in my system? Financial stability is probably one of my number one priorities. Like, I'm not massively driven and motivated by money per se, but we do need money to live and have a good life. Like, we can't get that bit twisted either. But also the humbling aspect of not being in a working environment. For the last 2 months, I stepped out of a position and I had a couple of other little bits on the sides, but nothing that was giving me that big inject like the previous position was. And it was humbling as fuck to align into breadline living and really tighten up on what I'm spending my money on, and it really allowed me to feel into the trust that I have, that everything's working out for me and that everything is moving in accordance with the rhythm of the nature that it is for my soul expansion. Now, we don't have to go through the grit and the grime and intense suffering to feel soul expansion, but it depends what our soul contracts are, right? Maybe that is what is aligned for me in order for me to move through to those expansive edges. I don't know. But all I know is that I'm here for it, I'm ready for it, and I know when I'm done, and I know when to step out when I'm done. And again, learning and leaning into these spaces where I really felt my doneness and stepped out was immensely empowering, because I'm not going to be controlled by someone's capacity to pay me for work and put up with their shit. It's just not going to happen. And it's an honor for me to reflect back on the way that I've moved in these environments and how I have stuck to my integral mindset. Now, I'm not perfect. I'm not going to sit here and fucking proclaim that I'm holier than thou. I'm not. I've got my shadow side as well. And I know when to become aware of that and to utilize that to propel myself further and deeper into the being that I was born to be. So that shadow integration aspect of anything that we move through that's activating shadow, whether that's on social media, whether that's in romance, whether that's in work, whether that's in friendship, like, we cannot bypass this human experience. Our soul is our soul is here experiencing the polarity of infinite possibility. Now, infinite possibility is a real thing. However, when we lean into the perspective of this infinite, abundant, unconditionally loved being, soul, in a physical vessel which has parameters, it can feel intense as fuck. I hope this is making sense, because I'm just really moving with the isness of what I feel into in terms of soul, and so spirit and matter, which is our soul living in a physical vessel, which is our body. And I feel like sometimes, like, that intense suffering can really be a strong indication that we are about to propel into a deeper level of expansion. But the suffering doesn't have to be absolute. You know, I feel like, just touching on what I said then, like, when our doneness is done and we know when we're done and it's time to leave, that's also soul expansion, knowing that it's like, this isn't worth my fucking time anymore. This is soul expansion Also, so is moving with the challenge that presents in the build up to that. And we've all got our own soul contracts. We can't possibly comprehend our absolute reason for being here and moving through Earth School in the way that we are. There's a great mystery that runs through life, and I'm absolutely here for it. And I'm also absolutely here for feeling into my doneness and walking away when it's absolutely time to go. So exciting times ahead. I have definitely been moving through a little bit of crunch where I'm like resisting the day-to-day routine. I very much love just living in this free-flowing space the last couple of months. I've been getting shit done. I've been getting on my creative. Nothing has dropped in that sense, but just I've loved like the slowness of getting up and then, you know, tending to my palace and tending to my own self and just making sure that everything is moving coherently. But that's all going to be moving coherently, even though I'm going to be shifting the way that life moves next week as I move into this new paradigm of full-time work. Let's go. And it's exciting. I'm excited to meet some new people, to network, and I'm always bringing some sort of change into these workspace dynamics when I move into them as well. So I'm excited. I'm not resistant anymore. I've released that resistance. I know that there's beautiful things ahead, and I get to work in a space that's right around the corner from my sister and my beautiful little nephew. Change of location is good. So workspace, lots of change happening there. Lots of beautiful things have been happening in my creativity. I feel like I've been really honoring the creative, inspirational flares that come my way. Whenever I get this strong, intuitive impulse to do something, I follow it. And I follow it not because I feel like I know what the outcome is going to be. Ultimately, I don't. I'm like, oh, this is an inspirational idea. Let's roll with that and see what happens. And even if the 3D result doesn't turn out in accordance with an old narrative that I used to play, something is always happening for me in the sense of I am always learning. I am learning about how to manage my business. I'm always learning about how I show up for my students. I'm always learning about maybe I could tighten up in certain areas. Maybe I need to hit the study books. Maybe, you know, the limitless capacity to learn and to level up has no limits. It's literally limitless. So I have been moving with these beautiful creative flares when they've been coming my way, moving with that, and it's been super exciting. And again, same with Bloom State Radio, I have this intuitive call to hit record with some guests in my next season. So I've already got episode 1 recorded, and I have a few guests lined up ready to hit record and get moving with that for next year as well. So again, I'm just following these intuitive flows. I don't have an outcome in mind. Like, for example, if my outcome in mind for these episodes being, oh, I want to be famous, oh, I want to get I want to just blow up the internet, blah blah blah, like all of that is lower dimensional 3D thinking. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm just saying that's not what my motivation is. My motivation is to tap into the stream of whatever wants to flow through me and move with that. So same with these episodes. I'm just doing this for fun, and I'm doing it because it feels alive and right for me to share the isness of what is that wants to move through me in the moment of record. So season 2 is going to be super exciting. I've got some incredible guests lined up, and I'm super excited for that. So stay tuned for season 2. What else has been moving rightly for me? Oh my goodness me. So my home. So I moved into my home. I think it's been about 4 years, maybe 4 years this year. And what I've learned to understand is that the job is just never fully done. So I'm an independent mom. It's just me and my daughter that live here. And again, I just want to give myself some praise that I have created the most beautiful home for us both to live in. But that in itself is like a living, breathing entity. Like, it needs to be tended to, like walls need to be painted, bathtubs need to be scrubbed, like really feeling into how beautiful the energy feels in my home when I walk through those doors, because I've tended to the energy of my home. And it's really inspiring for me to love the place that I live in. My home studio is downstairs. I'm always making improvements and shifting things around so the energy can flow more freely. And where I sit right now, again, I'm just like, how are you doing this, girl? Like, the capacity that I have is abundant, but there's also the nuance in that where it's like my capacity also has limits too. So whilst I am a limitless being from a soul level, I'm living in a 3D reality where there actually are limits, and it's like moving with the bandwidth of, okay, where is my limit here? And I just feel proud that my home is so gorgeous, and I have created this space not just for my students, but for my guests, my friends when they come around, for myself, for my daughter. Like, it's beautiful. And if you haven't got a practice of connecting with the energy of your home, I highly recommend you get that in your journal for 2026 and just really sit in your home in silence and feel into what needs to go. I love having massive declutters, especially when I'm premenstrual. Like, that is ultimately the best time for me to start having clear outs. Get rid of it, be gone, like, out. Anything stagnating, be gone, babe, because that's not the vibe. We are not stagnating around here. We move fluidly, as does the energy, and that's always a felt experience when people come into my home. So the palace is feeling tip top and stunning right now. Bits and pieces are all getting fixed up that have been broken for a while too. So that also fixes the energy in that respect. And new kitchen is on the horizon. So I'm excited to invest in a new kitchen in 2026, because I also feel like that will help me become more motivated to continue to cook some more beautiful foods. And that also leads us beautifully into the realm of food and how that shifted for me this year as well. So if you have listened to my episode, you'll know that I've been a fully fledged vegan for about 8 years. Since training in Muay Thai, I started to eat egg at the beginning of this year. So I was just not getting enough from a vegan diet whilst I was training in high impact combat sport and running and yoga and just life, just living. So I started to eat egg, a little bit resistant, amazing, loved it, vibed with it, weight was staying consistent. And then I moved on to some fish, which was a little bit tricky for my body to digest. It was a bit like, oh, what the heck is this, girl? But over time, that's sort of solidified and that's fine. Although if I do eat it now, it doesn't digest as well as beef does. And beef is one of my favorite foods to go to, which is so wild to think that I was like, I am never going to eat meat again. Never, never, never. I went down so many rabbit holes in terms of wanting to know what's happening to these animals upon breeding, upon slaughter, and the quote unquote welfare. It absolutely breaks my heart, and it still does. It breaks my heart. And to know what these animals are going through just so that we as humans can eat was really, really difficult for me to digest, and that was at the forefront of my mind when beef started coming into my awareness. I was like, I can't eat beef, I cannot do it. But it kept coming in strong, and it was like, okay, this is so strong, I can't ignore it. So I did. I went to a barbecue one afternoon, and as soon as I opened up the front door, the waft of beef just hit me, and I was like, oh, it's on today. Beef time, let's go. So I remember cutting that piece of beef up and sticking it in my mouth, And the taste, my body, everything was like having a pure party on the inside. I was like, this is ripe for me. This is right for me. And again, just really playing around with the parameters of my belief system, because a belief is just a thought that you keep thinking, right? So we can always reprogram our belief system. It's like with anything, whether you've moved from one religion to another or anything, you know, there's boundless belief systems that are out there. But veganism is a very strong belief system that I had, and I stuck with it for 8 years, and I'm proud of myself for that too. However, there has to be space for flexibility within that belief system, because if my belief system was so concrete where it was like, nope, cannot eat, then I'm going to be malnourished. And I'm not saying that I was malnourished when I was vegan. Veganism and yoga and gentle walking worked like an absolute dream. I felt fucking unreal. I felt the best I've ever felt in my life. But as my lifestyle shifts, so does my diet. It's a necessity, because if I'm malnourished and I'm not getting what I need, then my energy levels drop. And then the way that I show up for my students, for my daughter, for my friends, for my family, for myself, all of that has a ripple effect. So I took it all into consideration, and I ate that beef and I fucking loved it. And I have beef in my diet as a regular go-to for a protein source, an iron source, and I feel amazing. The idea of eating more beans, more fucking chickpeas, more whatever, just sent my stomach bloated before I'd even consumed it. So whilst my diet is majority still vegan, I now like to dabble in a little bit of meat, and I also have a bit of halloumi. I'm not fussed whether there's a drop of cow's milk in my tea anymore. Whilst dairy is definitely not something that I strive to lean fully into, it brings me out in hives. It makes my throat all thrushy and phlegmy and yuck. So I kind of tend to steer away from dairy, but meat like beef and halloumi and eggs, I am so happy that it's back in my diet, and I'm so happy that I'm feeling so good for integrating it into my diet as well. Very exciting times. I've tried a little bit of chicken and fish don't tend to agree with me too well, to be honest, which is interesting that it's both white flesh, whereas my understanding from beef and my studies was that it takes like 72 hours for it to digest, whereas it hasn't for me. It digests just as quickly as the rest of the food that I eat. So interesting to stretch my bandwidth with that belief system, and just continue to take my life in a way that is intuitive in its flow. So yay to the beef. And you know, having a strong relationship with food is important, just as the relationships that we have with our friends, our lovers, and all the things are as well. Everything that we connect with, we're in relationship to, whether that's within our training, whether that's within food, whether that's within our creativity. Like, our relationship is a direct reflection of what our relationship is like with ourselves. I feel there's nuance to that, obviously. Life is not just black and white, and more relationships can be a bit more complex than others. But ultimately, I still lean into the intuitive knowing that as long as the relationship I have with myself is strong, is stable, secure, I trust myself, I trust my intuition, I trust the direction, I trust that this is all unfolding for me because it's necessity to. And I trust in the flow of life. I trust that there's ups and downs. I trust that people can fucking switch and L-turns are a thing. I trust that. But ultimately, bringing that trust and that safety back into my own vessel, back into my own container, has also been something that's been fundamental for me to continue to tap into as I've moved into dating realm. So I've dated a couple of men this year, still moving with one right now, which absolutely has its ups and downs and can be quite confronting in certain aspects as well. But what I do know to be true is that my intuition is fucking so on point, And I'm not saying that it's always on point, because what I've also learned in these dating dynamics is that our deepest wounds can come to the surface. And if we are not in alignment with someone who is here to help, to heal, and not hinder, then there's massive expansion that can happen from that in terms of how I can propel myself forward into the next chapter. But what I've also learned is that any projections that come my way from an unhealed wound from that person, if I haven't got my boundaries strong and my wall of protection up and in place, then those projections absolutely have the capacity to re-traumatize opposed to heal. And I think there's a lot of there's a big misconception around like dating dynamics that's out there, that there's also this strong culture where the connection just seems to be disposable. It's like, oh, well, this is getting tricky, on to the next. Well, this isn't really, on to the next. Or let me go back and try and get that one again. And it's all very weird. And having that become reflected so that I can see that is power. And it also allows me to lean into my own quote unquote coping mechanisms when things get hard. It's like, where does my focus of attention go? Am I disciplined enough to keep bringing that back so that I can live in integrity? Sometimes no. Most of the time, yes. Depends on the length and the duration and the connection. And obviously there's nuance to that. But what I know to be true is that I'm here to heal, not hinder. And if there is an energy, or if there's a person who is deeply wounded, who's continuously projecting towards me, like, I know what radical action that I need to take when that presents. And also I know when I can soften and be open to receive, where I don't have to be in this defense of like, I must keep myself safe. Because again, what I've learned with the business assistants is that it really got me into a place where I just felt charged, and I felt like I had to be defensive. And actually, I don't want to be working in environments that are pushing me to the edge of pushing me out of my character. Because the minute that I start to feel that my character is starting to shift, that's a warning sign for me that something is off and something that needs to change. Whether that dynamic needs to end, or there's a conversation that needs to be had and to be opened up so that something can breathe, and so that any sort of wounding that's being presented can be alchemized with that state of presence. And what I just want to say as well is that, again, the current state of this dating world dynamics, do you know what? I think it's fucked. I think it's seriously fucked. And I think that there's a minority of people who actually don't buy into the bullshit of thinking that they need to go on dating sites, thinking that they need to have complete control over another person, dancing in power dynamics so that there is like leverage over the other. There's so much to be said about the state of the way that men and women are connecting in dating dynamics right now. It's actually really sad, and I started to lose faith, if I'm being honest. But I am a deep believer that we receive insight and people and places and circumstances that will reveal to us where we are not free inherently within our own sense of self and our own being and how we show up in the world. Where is this person showing me that I am not free? Because ultimately freedom and sovereignty is our birthright. And if someone is trying to oppress us and suppress us and try to take us down and try to weaken us so that we are more digestible for their palate, it's a fuck no, see you later. And being strong and rooted and grounded in that is an absolute superpower. And learning how to navigate these complex dynamics of interpersonal relationships is a skill, but it's not a skill that can be cultivated when we're not in these dynamics. So dating has been interesting this year and lots of fun. Friendships have been beautiful. I've met some really beautiful friends. I have had some stunning photo shoots, lots of really beautiful creative opportunities. Business in terms of yoga and business assistance is flowing. It was flowing through summer, all the way through to now, to this point. But the gratitude that I have to be presented with crossroads and choice, I actually have a choice upon which direction that I'm going to take, potentially. But there's nuance in that. It's like, do we actually have free will, or is everything already pre-paved? And that's where I'm going to leave this episode. Food for thought. Do we have free will, or is everything already predestined? Or is it both? Because they're the polarities, right? So thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in season 2. Peace and love.